Hello and welcome back to the TVBinges.com Pilot Roundtable, a Southgate Media Group podcast. I'm Kyle Tremblay, the editor of TVBinges.com, and I am joined as always by a fellow TV Binges writer. She's booking a gig at the local club for her three-piece jazz fusion band, Olivia Richards. Hello!
Yes, we're back.
We are back. Yeah, it's been a while. It seems like all of network TV took the last few weeks off. How have you spent your, I assume, vacation time with no pilots to talk about?
Oh my gosh, just waiting. Well, it was funny because, I'm like writing these weekly fives every week, and it was sort of like I was sort of trying to like dig things up, but I knew we weren't going to be talking about them, so it was kind of a sad moment when I was like, what have I been writing about anymore? And then this week happened, and I was like, oh my gosh, like network TV finally kind of pulled itself out of like a brief coma.
Yes, it's back, and this is off topic right off the bat. But honestly, there isn't a whole lot to talk about with this pilot, so I'm fine straying away immediately. Have you been watching any cable shows this summer? Since network TV is just a disaster field right now.
It's been that's the thing. I feel like HBO and Showtime have been kind of like popping up. Like you have the new show with like Dwayne Johnson, and Masters of Sex just came back, and yeah, like. It's been kind of having to like divert attention, and like Hannibal Buress has been making his show on Comedy Central, and
yeah. Have you watched any of Mr. Robot on USA?
I haven't. I know that you mentioned that.
Yeah, I am legitimately obsessed with Mr. Robot now. The 6th episode just aired, and I am completely and utterly taken by it. And this is a network-only pilot podcast. We decided to save ourselves and limit ourselves just to the main networks, but for anyone looking for a new show to watch and you only need to catch up with 6 episodes, Mr. Robot on USA is absolutely phenomenal. But the show we're talking about today is a creatively named pilot that NBC seems to be burning off. It's the school comedy starring Craig Robinson, titled Mr. Robinson. Olivia, what did you think of this one?
Oh my gosh. Okay, here's my thing with sitcoms. I'm usually not a fan because they usually this one had like a cool premise. Like if you like School of Rock, it has like that kind of vibe where you're like, oh my gosh, like kind of dead music education program, but you have like a really cool hip teacher who like brings joy to his classroom. And I love Craig Robinson and I love Perry Gilpin, but it just was like lukewarm. Like I can't really remember much that happened. Unfortunately, it just kind of hit one note, if we're going to go the pun route. It's been a while, so...
Very good. Yeah. I just... You made, I think, the important observation on Twitter that this would do a lot better as a single cam, I think.
Yeah.
Because the laugh track is really oppressive, and there's nothing worse, and this is a running theme on our podcast with multicams. There's nothing worse than a laugh track when your jokes aren't funny, and there were far too many misses in this pilot, and there was, I thought, some legitimately funny stuff, mostly involving just Craig Robinson being charming. Because I agree with you, he is terrific, and if nothing else, this pilot convinced me that he could absolutely be the star of a sitcom. I just don't know if it's this sitcom. And
I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the best scene of this pilot, honestly, was the first scene where he's just in the club with his band and he's singing a really lewd song called Chocolate Muffins. And Robinson, his great strength is that he has this kind of real determined intensity as he says hypersexualized things. And this pilot found that at times, and I feel like in that first scene, of course he's also a terrific singer, and a professional quality singer, and so he's up there singing this horrible song, and everyone's cheering. I'm like, yeah, this is a good time, we're having a good time here with this pilot. And then it sort of spiraled out into this big story about school, and it's actually kind of like a Saved by the Bell school comedy, and I don't know, it went a lot of places, and I don't really know what it was going for most of the time. And so it was kind of just unfocused and not so good.
That's the thing. I'm like, I felt this definitely the same way where it had a lot of elements that would have worked in and of themselves. If he was just sort of like a guy who has side gigs and all of a sudden out of nowhere, he gets hired as a teacher. Mm-hmm. in this, music education program, and he's still sort of like, what the heck do I do with this? Or like if he is just like a teacher who's trying to like find his way through, a faulty school system. Because I really like the relationship that he had with the principal, like the way that he and Perry
Yes.
played off of each other. Like I thought that was actually a really interesting relationship. But then there was like the relationship with his brother, and then there was also the side relationship that he had with the girl that he dumped at prom, or like stood up on prom, and he's like trying to get in back with her. But then there's her boyfriend, and there's so many. I have like a little bit of whiplash, like a lot of things.
On the scale of plot contrivances introduced immediately, the now grown woman who he stood up at prom, is really high up there. like that is the end of that first scene that I liked, which is he reconnects with this woman, and then that sort of sets in motion this whole chain of events that by the end of the pilot leads him to take a full-time position as a music teacher at the school, and it ends up being a school comedy. And this pilot just feels like there were a bunch of ideas for a bunch of episodes, and they all got put into this pilot as like, we got to start this story. No, we got to start this story. As we got to start this story. We've got to introduce the wacky gym coach, and we've got to introduce the principal who says overtly racist things, and but who's like attracted to him in a weird way, like just weird stuff that felt very rushed. And honestly, like I just wanted to spend some time with him, because I feel like when this pilot worked, and there were times when it worked, was when he was just sort of being himself, and there wasn't a lot of plot stuff going on, and he was just able to like talk with the kids or whatever, and just do something fun and be charming and be cool and say funny things. And when it bogged down was when we got into all this plot, and unfortunately that was most of it.
No, definitely. And I think that even if it, because I feel like that's what sitcoms try to do. And I'm seeing this more frequently where they have an idea, but it gets so diffused throughout. So that's sort of also where I was feeling it could have benefited from just being a single cam. Because if they had just focused attention on one thing, I think it really could have worked. And like, you don't need much. Like you have Craig Robinson, like he, in and of himself, he's already an asset to whatever you're going to put on TV.
Yes, and I think Robinson's delivery actually better lends itself to single cam than multicam, because that sort
Absolutely.
of, it's so deadpan, right? Like he's never, he's very just kind of matter of fact in his delivery, which is what makes it so good. And I feel like he almost has a kind of, and I'm scared to even evoke this name because he's my favorite character of all time, but there's almost something like Ron Swanson about it, where his humor a lot of times is from his stillness, and then you have like a smash cut to him wearing a ridiculous turquoise tuxedo, like a prom tuxedo, like posed as a supermodel on the desk. And that's like when like Parks and Rec would like have Ron Swanson wearing like Leslie's jumpsuit or her workout clothes or something. It's like there's a lot of comedy to be mined from someone who is very stoic and deadpan and suddenly dressing them up ridiculously. And I feel like that works better in a single cam than when every single thing he says is followed by 5 seconds of laughter. Like, I don't need that with this pilot. And so I just, at the same time, I do think that if this show was given like a full season and like an off season to retool, I bet they could make it work. Like, I think there's enough here to where if you gave it enough time and you let them make their mistakes early, like, I could see this turning into a perfectly pleasant and enjoyable show. I don't know about you.
That's where I'm thinking, because I was even thinking about the end, because I was trying to think of like, whether I wanted to give it like a thumbs up or a thumbs down, but I'm like, I don't think it's bad necessarily. Like, I don't think it's something that should be pulled. I just think it needs more direction, and I kind of want to see where it's going to go, because he definitely has like enough charisma with like the class. Like, I thought he was really cute with the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the general premise is really interesting, and it was an enjoyable watch. Like, it wasn't bad. It just needs a little bit more focus in it.
Right. It was a mess, but it was an often pleasant mess. What I think they need to cut out is the having like the kids or the coaches or whatever just say ridiculous things for the sake of saying them. There's like a line with the gym coach who is your sort of token clinically insane person, who says like, when Yvonne Lindell tells you to dissolve this on your tongue, don't. It's like, all right. First of all, you're making a joke like 1980s tennis, so thanks. And then also, it's like that's not in. That's just a line. Like that's a one-liner, and I feel like with all the stuff that was introduced, about his, I don't need that. I guess is what I'm saying. Like I don't need that line. Like I don't know if I need that character in general, but I definitely don't need that line. And there was just a lot of that with the principal, flirting with him and all of that. Like just a lot of sort of wacky for the sake of wacky. And I don't think that that's what this show is. I think this, if the show got the time to settle, and I don't think it did great ratings, and I don't suspect it will get the time, but if it had the time to sort of figure itself out, I think what it would land on is something similar to Mom on CBS, which is sort of a multicam, but a multicam that often gets kind of serious. And we saw a hint of that here, where there was that scene later on where he takes one of the kids aside and like sort of lectures him about smoking marijuana and how just because he let him off doesn't mean he's soft. And that scene wasn't played for laughs at all. And
no.
It's like, right? Yeah, and I felt like that. There's probably something here where it's kind of like a sort of 75% comedic but 25% serious show about someone who's trying to be a good teacher and kind of secretly trying to get his life together. A 40-year-old trying to get his life together and to grow up at this advanced age and trying to figure out what his role in the world is. But he's also, a sort of lewd jazz singer and all of that. So, I don't know. There was something here. It just wasn't in this pilot.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah. Did you have any other thoughts about supporting characters, performances, anything you want to shout out?
I just want to give it, again, a shout out to Perry Gilpin, because I watched Frasier, and I love that show, and I kind of just started binge watching that series, and I have always loved her, so it was kind of nice to see her again in a new show, so.
Now, I am sadly not caught up on the Frasier. Was she the principal who was making who was I don't know what she was doing? Was she the principal character?
No, she was she was one of the main characters on it. She was Roz, who was Frasier's station manager, where he did the psychiatry show. So she kind of had that same kind of brash delivery, where she was kind of like, had more of like a masculine role. Like she slept with a lot of people, and she like kind of didn't take Frasier's crap when he was being really pretentious. And
okay,
yeah, she was great.
On Mr. Robinson, she was the principal then.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. I'm trying to place her, but
Oh no, you're good.
Yeah, I'm totally lost. That's okay though. Yeah, and there was also like something where the one of his fellow teachers is like a stripper, I guess. Like that's the kind of stuff I don't really need. I don't know what place that had in this pilot, but yeah. So I don't think this show's gonna. It'll probably limp through its first season. Probably won't get a second, but I do think that if it got a second season, there's enough talent here and a good enough idea for it to work. Okay, Olivia, final verdict: thumbs up or thumbs down on Mr. Robinson?
I'm gonna give it a thumbs sideways,
okay,
in that I don't want to see it yanked off of TV, but I also kind of would like to see it do a little bit better further down the road.
Yeah. I'm really torn on this one, because, again, it would work, I think. Like, I really think that this show would work, but at the same time, we've seen enough... I mean, and most comedies are bad when they premiere, but we've seen enough premiere better than this, that it's kind of tough. And the fact that the network doesn't have a lot of confidence in it, considering they're running 2 a night to start out with, just doesn't give me a lot of hope. So I'm going to give it a sad thumbs down. Certainly, it's about as close to a thumb sideways as I could give. I can't we can't give 2 thumbs sideways, then we're not providing a service for anyone. but it's the kind of show where it's not going to make you feel bad about humanity, which is a positive. I mean, that's like a lot of comedies that premiere kind of do. So you're going to smile a few times. It might not make you laugh. If you like Craig Robinson from The Office, then I recommend at least watching the pilot, seeing if you can find something useful there. So that is our final verdict. You've been listening to the Pilot Roundtable, a TVBinges.com and Southgate Media Group production. You can listen to all of our episodes on iTunes, where you can rate and review us. We would appreciate that. Or find us at southgatemediagroup.com. Follow Olivia on Twitter at RichardsOlivia, and me on Twitter at KyleLovesTV. Until next time.